Good afternoon, Buckeye fans. We are here at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center after Ryan Day and Jim Knowles' press conference. I'm Patrick Murphy. This is Dave Biddle from Bucknuts 24/7 Sports. Dave, Ryan Day, we'll start with injuries. Not a huge update. He even admitted he was saying the same thing as last week when guys did not play, but does it sound like they may get some guys back this week?
Yeah, I mean, he was optimistic that they'll get Emeka Egbuka back and Denzel Burke and Travion Henderson. He was asked about those guys. They're all lumped together. And he said, yeah, we'll see how this weekend. We expect that they'll all have a good week of practice, and we expect that they'll play. But then, as Pat said, he acknowledged, he said the exact same thing last week. So we'll see. I mean, he's not going to say much. And, it seemed encouraging. But, again, it's like I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. The other injury would be to Devin Brown, who Ryan Day already said on the radio last night is going to miss probably a couple of games. He was non-committal on which quarterback would be the number two. You hope that you don't need a number two in the sense that Kyle McCord plays all the meaningful snaps. But what did you make of that situation?
Very interesting, because early in the season when he was asked about it, both guys got hurt, McCord and Brown, who would be the next guy in? He said, well, Tristan Gebbia would be the next guy in, the seventh year senior. I think he's a seventh year senior, transfer from Oregon State.
And Nebraska.
Yeah, he started at Nebraska, played there a couple of years and then went to Oregon State. I think he was at 3 years at Nebraska, 3 years at Oregon State, and now basically almost like a coach in waiting here at Ohio State. That was interesting. He said Lincoln Kienholz could be him. He said they would be comfortable putting him in the game if they needed to put the true freshman in there. They could still play him up to 4 games and still redshirt him. So there's only 5 regular season games left. So obviously there's going to be a postseason of some sort. I found that interesting. It would have been very easy for him to say, yeah, just like I said, a few weeks ago, Tristan would be the next guy in. He didn't say that. He said, we'll have to see how it goes. But they seem like, for having an emergency quarterback, he seems to feel like pretty comfortable with either one of those guys.
I still think it would be Tristan Gebbia if you needed to put a guy in. Like, you're on the road at Wisconsin. Kyle has to come out of the game for whatever reason. You go with the experience. But I think this speaks to what Lincoln Kienholz has done. And I knew they were very high on him, more so than our ratings and other ratings. But I think it speaks volumes to what he's done in practice since he's gotten here this summer and how he's played. Ryan Day was asked about that Devin Brown package in the red zone. It doesn't sound like that's necessarily going to go away. I would be surprised if they use it as much. But Lincoln could be a guy who can do some of those things as long as they trust him to hold on to the football. They have some other guys, Ryan Day admitted, that can do that. And, Xavier Johnson possibly. He even mentioned that they tried some things with Emeka Egbuka in practice. I don't know if we'll see much more of that. He did mention that the injury to Devin Brown does make you less likely to use Kyle McCord in that situation. Step on in here, Steve.
All right.
But it does sound like that's not exactly dead in the water just because Devin Brown got hurt for a couple weeks. Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, I mean,
they've got to score somehow in the red zone.
But he's not going to give away his. I think that is pretty much dead in the water until Devin Brown gets back. I don't think they're going to use somebody else in that role. I do think it's one of those things where hopefully it sounds like it's a high ankle sprain that's going to be 4 to 6 weeks, and they can also linger. I think you just at this point, if you're Ohio State, you just want to make sure you have number 33 ready if needed for a certain game in Ann Arbor.
The red zone topic is continuing to be an issue, Steve. They seem to be banging their heads against the wall trying to figure out what to do, including this quarterback situation. Ryan Day was asked about keeping Marvin Harrison on the field, not going as big to try and draw out the defenders. What's your read on what they can do in the red zone, what they have done, what's worked, what's not?
Yeah, they need to basically start over, I think, is how I would view it. It just isn't going real well right now. And, they have no problem moving the ball, up and down the field. But, they get inside the 20-yard line and it's like poison. It's hard for them right now. And I can't explain to you why. I think if you had Travion Henderson and Emeka Egbuka, I think that would change some thoughts down there of okay, we do have weapons, we can spread the field. In whatever the last home game was, they ran a toss to Chip Trayanum to the wide side, and that worked out pretty well. But going straight at people just isn't working for them right now. People are like, oh, run the quarterback sneak. they could try that, I suppose. I saw on Monday Night Football.
I'm one of those people they're yelling, run the quarterback sneak.
Last night.
The half-yard line, run the goddamn quarterback sneak.
Yeah. The 49ers guy jumped over the pile and grabbed a hold of the runner or the quarterback and wouldn't let him get in. I mean, that's how people are having to defend that now. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I know they got to get it solved because there's going to be a game. Michigan, Georgia, whoever it may be, at some point this season, if that's what it comes down to, where they're going to need to punch the ball in at the 1 or 2 yard line. And if they can't do it, then they're probably going to lose that game. So to me, this is something, no reason to stop practicing it, I would say. And they got to come up with some new ideas and some different ways to deploy people. People pointed out the film that Stover was slow off the block on that and got beat. Number 0, DeLuca, the former walk-on, got in there and made the play. And, great for him. Penn State's got good players too. So Ohio State, it's not robots out there. People brought up the special teams thing with the punt hitting. You called it. You said it was Lorenzo Styles. Yeah. I couldn't figure out who it was at the time, but that's just one of those freak plays that happens in football. I mean, the thing is oblong and goes. It has a mind of its own. It's going to go where it's going to go. People are like, fire the special teams coach because a punt hit a blocker. It's like, how do you prepare for a mishit punt? I don't know. That was weird.
Yeah, going back to the red zone, I think it is kind of interesting that arguably the biggest play of the year, Chip Tranum getting into the end zone against Notre Dame, is where they've struggled the most. They did it on that play. They were successful, barely. But that seems to be the topic of conversation, is how do you do that consistently? I don't know. You make a good point about the toss play. I liked that. And then they had a play action off of that, I think a drive or two later. So they've tried to be creative. It just doesn't – there hasn't been that one thing that's like, okay, this is what we can, lean on when we get down there.
Yeah, it's frustrating when you watch this running game and you get to the point now, you're 7 games into the season. Yeah. Is it really going to get better? It'd be foolish to think that it's just going to magically get better. I'd like to see some more misdirection. You're not going to rip up your playbook at this point of the year. Not that they need to. We know that Ryan Day is one of the top offensive minds in the country. Not a decent offensive mind. He's one of the best in the country. So, we've seen some very good, plays that they've drawn up. For running, they've got to figure something out. They're not going to be an elite rushing team, but they have to get better. And they know that. They have to be able to run the ball at least effectively if they're going to achieve their goals. If they're going to win the game in Ann Arbor, if they're going to achieve their goals after that, they're going to have to at least effectively run the ball. And then that'll help open up the passing game as well. I don't know. I'm in a wait-and-see mode. I don't know if this will ever be a good running team, but as long as it can be effective, I'll say, in big games, effective enough with this defense, with Marvin Harrison Jr. out there catching passes, although Kyle McCord needs to clean up his ball placement a lot, in my opinion. But this is a championship level defense. So the offense just needs to be good. They don't have to be great, but they need to be good.
Let's get to the defense of Jim Knowles. He was asked about a number of different things from the weekend. Jermaine Matthews, Jordan Hancock, 2 guys that I thought really stood out in this game, going back and watching the film, and Jim Knowles seems to be pretty high on both of them. They do think they'll get Denzel Burke back, but you've got some depth in this secondary. And he was asked about, okay, well, now because of that, does that mean you're okay with a little bit more blitzing? And he said, yeah, you can do it at times. What do you make of the secondary, Steve, this year?
All been outstanding. I think by and large that they don't give up big plays. I think Theo Johnson from Penn State had like a 20 or 30-yard play, maybe against the linebackers and the safeties, but the corners didn't give up a pass play of longer than like 18 or 19 yards in this game. And, Penn State failed on their first 15 third downs, as was outlined in any number of places. They finally got one in the final minute when Ohio State was kind of in a backtracking mode, basically keep the clock running, keep the ball in front of you type thing, and let them move it down the field, basically. So with a 2 touchdown lead, you can do that. So to me, they've been outstanding. You were worried going into the game not having Denzel Burke. They didn't miss him. Hancock, Igbinosun, and Jermaine Matthews were outstanding. And one of the neatest plays of the game. It was like a slant pass, and Jermaine Matthews gets in there and bats it away, and he immediately jerked his head and looked back at the back judge. And when he didn't see the yellow flag was coming, he went like that. So he was looking for the flag, but no flag coming. And, those calls are so difficult on those officials to judge what was illegal contact, what was interference, and those kind of things. And thankfully for Ohio State, one of those calls went their way because Marvin Harrison got grabbed as he was coming out of his break, and that's the play where McCord got hit and fumbled, and they returned it for a touchdown, and it was overruled by the penalty. So tough job by those officials, but again, Ohio State got some breaks there, I think, at times, and at the same time, you have to play through whatever the officials call a lot of times.
Dave, you tried and failed to ask Ryan Day about the Michigan situation, which I'm sure you all are aware of. Jim Knowles also asked about it, and he said he had been told by, the higher-ups?
Upper management?
Yeah, upper management to not...
maybe it was higher-ups.
Yeah, whichever, to not dive into it. I'm not surprised that the coaches didn't want to talk about it. There may be a time down the road where we can get that. It'll probably be around the same time we talk about the Tennessee job with Greg Schiano.
Right.
But just your impressions of them not discussing it and maybe what that means is going on behind the scenes here.
Yeah, I think with the being so close to it, Ohio State being kind of tied to it, you have allegations, which I don't buy into at all. I think this has been debunked by anybody who's unbiased, but you have Michigan writers blaming Ryan Day for turning Michigan in. That's what they're focused on, is who turned them in, not the fact that they're cheating. Was not surprised that he didn't talk about. In fact, I prefaced the question saying, I know you're not going to comment on what's going on in Michigan, but sign stealing in general, how aware do you have to be? We've talked to him about it in the past. He talked about it before the Clemson game. Even Jim Knowles talked about it last year before the Georgia game. But I guess the more I think about it, I'm not surprised that Coach Day didn't want to talk about it and told his lieutenants also don't talk about it.
Yeah, and what advantage does it give them to discuss it right now?
Right.
You're only potentially giving more fuel to the fire here in a handful of weeks when they go up to Ann Arbor. Steve, just your read on this situation and kind of what you think may come of what's happened up in Ann Arbor, because that seems to be what everyone wants to talk about this
We're
week.
getting little drips and drabs every day, Pat. Something new comes out. Pete DeMel, looks at the guys from Yahoo and say, I see your paper trail of Connor Stallions buying tickets at Ohio State, Purdue, Indiana, Nebraska, Michigan State, and all these other places. And I raise you, whatever video evidence of somebody sitting in those seats, taking video of the opposing sideline and so on and so on and so on. And that doesn't look good. That just, the appearance of that, it's somewhat circumstantial evidence, I suppose, because, they need to tie and connect the dots. And honestly, I don't know if we're going to expect Michigan to come clean or be honest about what happened and who knew what when. I mean, they've tried to deny that the coaching staff had any involvement in this, but then you see screen grabs of this guy who's on, quote, the recruiting staff, standing next to the defensive coordinator during live games and talking to him almost like he's the co-defensive coordinator. Is he the co-defensive coordinator, or is he, as they described, a low-level recruiting staffer? You decide. I don't know.
And then when Michigan has the ball, where's he standing next to? He's standing next to the offensive coordinator talking to him.
Yeah,
so it's absolutely, there's so much incriminating evidence. And even before all this came out with the last couple of days, there's no way, we've said this before, there's no way the Big Ten and the NCAA would have had that joint statement with that type of language used, warning future opponents of Michigan that this was going on. There's no way the Big Ten and the NCAA would have taken that step unless they had hard evidence. Now we're seeing what that hard evidence is.
If they have hard evidence and it's corroborating and it shows that they actually did involve, a scheme of some sort to cheat.
See, guys, I got to go.
Dave will catch you later. To cheat their opponents, and they've already won Big Ten games as a result of this, and may have done it last year. I think you vacate what happened last year for them. I think you, vacate, some wins for this year for them. I think you hand down a postseason ban that they can't play in the Big Ten championship or maybe even in a bowl game. I just think that you can't reward. You can't reward. They have compromised the integrity of the competition, and that's just strikes at the heart of the matter. You can't declare a team that has compromised, allegedly. This is all allegations. I'm not saying they did it. I'm saying that there are allegations. If the allegations are proven, then they have compromised the integrity of the competition and have made themselves ineligible for the competition. Period. Over and out. That's just a fact of the matter. They've stolen wins that, they would have beaten Nebraska 50-0 with signs or without signs. Bullcrap. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like Watergate. They didn't need to break into the Democratic headquarters. Nixon was going to win in a landslide. But you know what? They had the hubris and, the lack of integrity, and they did it. The same things apply in this case to Michigan. Got to go. You don't deserve a chance to play for the championship, period. Over and out. Gone.
Let's focus back in on what Ohio State's got this week. That's at Wisconsin. We've seen this before, a big emotional win against Penn State. You go on the road the next week against a team that probably isn't nearly as talented as you, and you lose to Iowa. I asked Ryan Day about kind of handling that situation this week. He talked about competitive stamina and having to play their best football every week because you're Ohio State. How do you read this situation going into Madison? I think the Buckeyes will obviously be more aware of it than they were a few years ago in Iowa, but are the Buckeyes at all on the upset alert after, again, another emotional win against a tough Penn State team?
Well, Wisconsin's a wounded team, obviously. Tanner Mordecai is not going to play. He injured his hand. They put a new guy in there, a redshirt freshman, Braden something, and he filled in.
I haven't started watching Wisconsin.
Yeah, I haven't either. Against Illinois, and they pulled out. He got a touchdown pass in the final minute, and they win the game like 26-22. Great win for them to get their season back on track. I mean, they doinked off a game at Washington State, scored 6 points, and lost at home to Iowa 15-6. And so they're a wounded team. They know they can't afford any more losses and win the West, although I think they could win the West at 7-2 if they were able to run the table after Ohio State. But at any rate, to me, it is a bit of a setup. You've got Luke Fickell, who is dying to beat Ohio State and will pull out every stop imaginable to do that. Nobody at Ohio State's ever played a game at Wisconsin. Nobody at Ohio State understands I don't think Ryan Day was on the staff in 2016, was he?
Nope, 2017 was his first year.
Yeah, so he's never, I presume he's never been there for a game.
A night game.
A night game. I can tell you, I was there, in 2010, 2003. Ohio State had undefeated teams, lost both times. Went in there, 2012. 2012 and 2016 may not have been night games, but they both went to overtime. And Ohio State won both games in overtime. And so, it's a difficult, tough place to play. Having said that, if Ohio State plays great defense like they did against Penn State and can figure out a little bit of a run game, and as long as they still get Marvin Harrison, his 10 for 160, they can win this game by, 14 to 21 points probably pretty handily. It's just they've got to go in and appreciate and understand the situation they're walking into. It's a hornet's nest. And again, a wounded Wisconsin team that can't afford another loss. And, had they beaten Iowa, you'd say they're playing with house money. They've got their division on lock. Well, they really don't. So They need every win they can get.
Where would you rate, real quick, Wisconsin's night game atmosphere in the Big Ten?
I think it's Penn State 1. Yeah. I think it's Wisconsin 2. Now, Ohio State, for big games, is in that discussion.
Yeah.
Those are the top 3. Nebraska, overall game day, is in the top 4, probably at 4, because they support their team unlike anything else.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then you get down to Michigan, Iowa, I think on that next tier. Iowa, Michigan, they have great support, obviously, at both of those places. So those are the top 6. I can't really think of anybody who even deserves a thought to be in the top 6 ahead of any of them. Then you're getting down more along the lines of Michigan State, Purdue, if they have a good team, can be good. Although you were there, that had to be miserable. I mean,
I will say the Purdue student section stayed until well into the fourth quarter of that game. I don't know if they just had nothing better to do.
They don't have bars or alcohol in West Lafayette? What are they doing?
We were talking about it in the press box.
It was even raining, wasn't it?
As the fourth quarter started, it was like, wow, a lot of these students are still here. So credit to them. But
when they did score, it got loud.
Yeah,
but,
it was not a great atmosphere, though. Even pregame, like before kickoff. Now, when we were there for the 2018 upset, that place got a little bananas. But I think I agree with your ranking.
And Minnesota has a nice new stadium that's cool. It's just, they just have not been a consistent enough winner.
It's not right on campus, so you've got to get there. All right, I was just curious what you thought, but I agree. All right, well, we're going to get to work. You've got the videos already up from both press conferences, Jim Knowles and Ryan Day. Is Ryan on the site already?
Ryan's on the front page,
yep. Cool.
And Knowles is in the comments underneath of it.
Cool.
So.
Well, plenty more stuff throughout the day, throughout the week. Buckeyes head to Madison. Steve and I will be there, and we will talk to you again later throughout the week. Thanks, guys.